survival of the fittest. This popular term, initially coined by philosopher Herbert Spencer in 1864, encapsulates the essence of a theory which has become the foundation of modern biology: the theory of evolution by natural selection. Natural selection, as Darwin preferred to call it, is the process by which organisms better suited for their environment survive and reproduce at a higher rate than those less suited for their environment. Take, for example, the giraffe. Way back in the ancestry of modern giraffes, you can imagine a population of deer-like animals that consumed the leaves of trees in the open savanna. At some point, a genetic mutation resulted in a slightly but significantly longer neck in one of the animals. This proto-giraffe gained exclusive access to higher leaves in the trees, and as a result was more likely to survive and reproduce than those around it. Assuming this trait is heritable, its offspring also had longer necks and exhibited increased fitness as well. This effect compounded, and over the course of many generations, the average neck length increased dramatically. Sexual selection, as Darwin describes it, arises from differential reproductive success, generally as a result of female choice or combat between males. With our giraffes, you can also imagine that females prefer to mate with stronger males over relatively weaker ones, a preference which itself would be selected for over time, and that males directly fight each other over females. As a consequence, the more formidable males are more likely to reproduce and leave offspring that are in turn larger than giraffes of previous generations, and the average size of male giraffes in particular increases over time. Now, obviously, these are simplified examples, and there are a lot more nuances to the process. But the idea still holds. The frequency of certain physical traits in an animal population shifts in response to environmental influences, called selective pressures. These pressures can come in the form of food availability, diseases and parasites, predation, sexual preferences, environmental conditions, and so on. Okay, so why does this matter for our own lives? Humans are biological creatures, and the evidence shows that we too evolved over millions of years as a result of differential survival and reproduction in our ancestral environments. And, in the words of 20th century evolutionary biologist Theodosius Dobzhansky, nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. Many aspects of our anatomy and physiology have been shaped by selective pressures such as the ones elaborated in our initial example. We lost hair throughout most of our bodies to facilitate sweating, but retained hair on our heads because it provides insulation from the cold and protection from the sun. We developed different melanin levels, which enable vitamin D synthesis while also providing protection from the sun, depending on UV intensity in ancestral environments. We have hands that are designed for the manipulation of tools and arms that are optimized for precision throwing. All of these adaptations are physical characteristics immediately observable to our senses. Yet, natural selection acts not only on morphology, but also on behavior. The nervous system is subject to the forces which drive evolution just as much as any other system of the body. Differences in brain structure that translate into more adaptive behaviors can be inherited and selected for. This is how you get reflexes such as the startle response and preferences such as our natural inclination towards sugary foods. These built-in programs greatly benefited the survival and reproduction of our ancestors, which is why they are so hardwired into our brains. Early animals that were not alerted by unexpected stimuli or inclined towards high-calorie foods were at a disadvantage in environments in which energy sources were inconsistent, and a fraction of a second could be the difference between being eaten by a predator versus living to see another day. The functional purposes behind our sensory instincts are often very easy to postulate. Rotting flesh smells bad because getting near it will expose you to potentially deadly pathogens, while freshly cooked meat smells good because eating it provides you with life-sustaining quality nutrients. This is not learned in the sense that a child never has to be taught that just baked cookies smell good or that poop does not. These preferences eventually appear as a result of the development of innate programs of the human mind. Likewise, you might attempt to teach a child that a stove is hot, but you don't have to teach the child that the heat is painful, or how exactly you should pull your hand away when it contacts a hot object. With regard to sexual attraction, both males and females across cultures reliably develop preferences for health indicators such as clear skin and luscious hair. Men grow up to be attracted to a particular female body shape, and women become attracted to taller than average men because, over the course of human evolution, these traits signaled certain advantages, such as youth and fertility, or capacity to acquire and defend resources, respectively. If we take this line of reasoning a couple steps further, one can go as far as to say that whatever we perceive or experience as humans is entirely constrained by the selective pressures which acted on our ancestors. We don't experience reality as it really is, only how we need to survive and reproduce. To paraphrase cognitive psychologist Donald Hoffman, everything we experience is just an adaptive fiction. In the past 40 years or so, the field of evolutionary psychology has expanded significantly. Much research has been conducted on subjects ranging from the ultimate purpose of the so-called universal emotions to how modern lifestyles mismatch with our evolved biology. The application of evolutionary hypotheses to psychology has generated many interesting insights into human behavior. In a landmark 1989 study, evolutionary psychologist Lida Cosmides altered the wording of a common logic exercise, the Wason selection task, and found that subjects performed drastically better when it involved social exchange and the detection of cheaters, implying that we have built-in cognitive mechanisms for detecting rule breakers, which are activated specifically in the context of a social contract. Some of her later research suggests that humans have innate cognitive mechanisms built for categorizing people into in-groups and out-groups based on cues of social alliance, a feature of the human mind that crops up everywhere from sports competitions to nationalist movements to racial conflicts. Massive studies on human mate preferences, many of them extensively cross-cultural, have corroborated the common notion that, when choosing a partner, women tend to prioritize wealth and status, while men tend to prioritize youth and physical attractiveness. Evolutionary psychologists such as David Buss posit that these differences in criteria reflect the distinct selective pressures exerted on males versus females during the history of our species. Put crudely, genes for preferentially choosing fertile partners have been more successful and expressed in men, while genes for preferentially choosing partners with power and resources have been more successful when expressed in women. The key point in all of these cases is that we don't realize our behavior is primarily driven by Stone Age adaptations. As stated by the founders of evolutionary psychology, Leda Cosmides and John Tooby, in their 1993 article, Evolutionary Psychology, a Primer. Our natural competences, our abilities to see, to speak, to find someone beautiful, to reciprocate a favor, to fear disease, to fall in love, to initiate an attack, to experience moral outrage, to navigate a landscape, and myriad others are possible only because there's a vast and heterogeneous array of complex computational machinery supporting and regulating these activities. This machinery works so well that we don't even realize that it exists. We all suffer from instinct blindness. Thinking evolutionarily opens the door for a deeper exploration of the self. It helps us begin to see beyond the illusion of our perceptions and emotions and to realize the scary truth. We did not create our minds, bodies, nor any of our likes, dislikes, aversions, or desires. From beauty to morality, much of what we tend to accept as either a simple fact of existence or a mere byproduct of culture actually has biological underpinnings in the evolutionary history of our species. In future videos, we will dive deeper into the powerful yet dangerous ideas and controversies to be discovered in this fascinating area of research, all with the aim of unraveling the human condition in a way that applies to everyday life. Although we find ourselves thrown into this world complete strangers to who we really are, we do have the opportunity to look in the mirror and seek to understand.